do when life's challenges seem insurmountable, when you feel isolated amidst a world full of people, or when the cycle of self-doubt spirals into a dark, unending abyss. If you have never tuned into this show, this is Lifejacked, the resilience podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Rowe. Lifejacked is when an unfortunate or unplanned event happens to jack with your life. Each guest shares their personal stories of tragedy to triumph in hopes that others, like you, can take your setbacks and transform them into opportunities for growth and empowerment. My guest on this episode is Lawrence Chrystopher Harris, who has traversed such paths with remarkable strength. As a youth empowerment speaker, Lawrence dedicates his life to guiding teens and young adults in breaking free from limiting beliefs. His mission is profound: to inspire resilience, self-love, and a growth mindset, allowing young individuals to seize control of their narratives and forge their own paths to success. Listen in to explore Lawrence's personal resilience story, from overcoming the shadows of childhood abuse and isolation to building a support system that strengthens and uplifts. Hi, Lawrence. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic today and been really excited to come on here and share.
I'm getting excited as well. As I was doing the research on you and for the episode, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is really unique. I cannot wait to chat with him. So, as I said, thank you for joining me. Now, can you start by sharing a little bit more about your journey and what initially inspired you to even become a youth empowerment speaker?
Well, I would say the thing that inspired me to become a youth empowerment speaker, it came from the realization of the power of my own voice, because for so much of my life, I felt powerless. Growing up, I remember I was 12 years old, and this isn't to villainize him because I've been able to heal from it now, but I grew up with an abusive father. I would always see him argue with my mom. I would see, him beating on me and my siblings, and that led me to this deep despair, this feeling of powerlessness, like nothing I said mattered, nothing I was mattered, and that I didn't matter as a person. Then through years of therapy, counseling, and some hard inner work, I began to realize that what I say matters. Who I am matters, but we have so many influences in our life, whether that's bad upbringings, our environment, or just things being promoted to us that leads us to feel as if we don't matter. And I was a summer camp counselor when I was 15. I was walking through the forest talking to these kids about just the beauty of nature. And as we're talking, I began to realize that I could share my perspective with them on life, on just being a better person to the world around you. One thing led to another. My friend was telling me, Lawrence, you need to record what you say and put that on the internet. People want to hear what you got to say. So I was sitting on park benches with my iPhone, the exact same phone I still have to this day, recording YouTube videos, just talking about whatever, talking about life advice, talking about relationship advice, talking about anything I thought could benefit people. And over time, it just started turning into a career. I saw things like Tony Robbins, and I thought, okay, I knew there were YouTubers who did this, but wait, people get paid thousands of dollars an hour to talk? Let me go do that. And I just wanted to help people, wanted to make money doing what I love doing, talking.
Well, that's fantastic. When we can do what we love, that comes naturally to us for money and to get paid to make a living make a living out of it. That is spectacular. Now I want to dive into that serious topic that you talked about, was the childhood abuse. And I know it's an incredibly difficult thing when the people who are close to us, right? The people that we see every day, day to day, in our home where we're supposed to feel safe. And these are the people who are hurting us. And I know that facing childhood abuse, I mean, I was fortunate. I didn't face much abuse, but facing childhood abuse in isolation, I think, is probably incredibly challenging. So how did those experiences shape your early perceptions of yourself? Because if you're being abused, right, you're being told you're not good enough, you're being beat on and hit on and isolated, and I would imagine that it does something to your self-esteem or the perception of self. So how did you navigate that early on? I mean, did you feel broken down? I mean, what were your feelings because you were so young?
The best way to describe how I felt in the moment is, imagine you're taking a shower with no skin and the water is steaming hot. Every drop of water burns more than the last one, and it only gets worse. That's what it felt like from 13 up to 15. One experience I remember specifically was, I was 13 years old and I'm laying in this bunk bed. Little bit of context, my mom and my dad are separated. So my dad's house, then there's my mom's house. This happened at my dad's house. I'm laying on this bunk bed and he comes in and I can hear like his footsteps coming towards the door. And with every footstep, there's another shiver of fear in my brain. And he comes in and he yells like, "Come on, get up. It's time to go to church." And that like triggered something in my head where I start thinking to myself, how can somebody claim that they're this God-loving person, yet they're beating on their children? How can someone do that? But I go down the steps and I'm sitting on the couch, just kind of following orders like always, until he says, "Okay, well, now you got to go up and get your coat." And for the first time, I stood up to him and said, "One moment you want me to sit down on the couch, the next moment you want me to get up, make up your mind." Long story short, he ends up disowning me in front of the church when I was 13. So I'm standing outside of an actual church with the preacher there, the congregation, everybody's watching this happen. And he gets back in his car, drives off. My mom takes me home. Never saw him again after that. And I'm the oldest sibling. So my younger sibling were still going there without me present. My little sister, who at this time is 9 years old, and my little brother, who's autistic, me and him both are autistic, but he's nonverbal. Like, he speaks in sign language, and he can't really like fully advocate for himself. So this is like driving me crazy because I had like essentially it felt like I lost my purpose for being alive, because I dedicated myself to keeping them safe. I dedicated myself to making sure they're all right, even if it means I have to risk my own safety. But through that process, I started to realize like more and more of just how bad I truly felt. Because it's like some days I felt nothing at all. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be sad. I would be nothing. Other days I would feel better than the day before, but only less bad. And over time, it just wore me down so much. My perception of myself was damaged because when you're growing up and your parent, who's supposed to be a role model of, the kind of man you're supposed to be, you know, I'm not supposed to be this kind of man. I don't have that good, male role model. And I'm trying to figure out, navigating being a young teenager, navigating becoming a man, what it means to be a good person. I'm trying to figure all this out while balancing school, while balancing, making sure my siblings are, in a good headspace, keeping my mom from getting too stressed out. I'm trying to manage so many things at once that I felt broken. And the only thing that was able to help me heal from that was so much inner work, so much therapy. I had this therapist named Sophie, best lady I'd ever met in my life. Her, and I had another one named Amy. Those two women were like, they were able to keep me holding on just good enough to finally see something worth living for. Wow. And once I found that, I knew I'm never letting this go. And I am never letting somebody else walk down the street and feel how I felt. I do it for the people who need it, the people who felt like how I did. Because I felt like nothing. And when you feel like nothing, you feel like you don't have a life worth living. You feel like nobody's coming to care about you so much.
Yeah. And so I can imagine, because one of the things I do struggle with is self-doubt, which also sometimes people call it imposter syndrome. And, I think that I have this unrealistic expectation of myself to be perfect and have everything perfect. I'm a Virgo, so I guess that it comes with the territory with the birthday. But one of the things that you have talked about in a lot of your talks has been self-doubt. And so I know that I have viewers out there and listeners out there who are just like me, who are just like you, who struggle with self-doubt, feeling like you are not good enough, feeling like there's no way that I can accomplish this goal. There's no way that I can reach the finish line and I can be as great as I want to be. So how have you been able to challenge this perception of yourself, that self-doubt? How have you been able to challenge that and navigate and kind of fight against that?
Well, like you just said, it's really a fight. Every time that voice in your head says you can't, prove that you can. If you had a self-doubt about cooking, let's just use that as a simple example. I think I'm a terrible chef. I can't cook. I'm going to burn down the house. Okay, go cook a pack of noodles. What does cooking a pack of noodles have to do with this? Simple. If I can do something small, I can do something a little bit bigger than that. So that means that I don't think I can cook. I think I'm a terrible chef. Did you just burn down your microwave? No. Did you burn down your stove? No. Did you burn down the house? No. So that means you're at least good enough to not burn down your house. And from there, every time that self-doubt comes up and it says you can't, prove that you can. I don't think I'm smart enough to start my own business. Okay, go down, go on ChatGPT, how to start a business. Do what it said. You're smart enough to follow instructions. So that means that you're smart enough to do something. You don't need to have it all figured out. Nobody does. You just need to figure out enough to prove to yourself that you can do something. So I hope that metaphor makes sense to you.
No, it does. And you're right. You're right. Like, I think that some of the issue is that a lot of times people think that we're supposed to be perfect at something, right? But not realizing that it's a process. I know when I first started the podcast, I was audio only. And my first podcast in 2020, I had no idea what I was doing. Right. Yeah. And it was just like all these things. And now here I am, second podcast. Now I'm doing video. And I think I've interviewed almost 200 people. And it has been such an eye-opening experience. And I have learned along the way, and you're right. Once I let go of those limiting beliefs and I just recognize that it's going to be what it's going to be. And all I have to do is just put one foot in front of the other and just every day try something different, but be consistent. I know that is one of the things that you definitely have to do is be consistent. What do you think about that?
Very, because it's sort of like if you wanted to climb a mountain. Let's say you want to climb Mount Everest. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. It's too hard. Take one step after another, and sooner or later, you'll get there.
That's it.
Or eating an elephant. You just take one bite every day, and after a certain point, you will eat an elephant. Not at one time. Perfectionism makes us think we need to have it all figured out right here, right now. It needs to be flawless. It has to be pitch perfect. If I make even the slightest mistake, the entire thing's ruined and it's just terrible. And oh, I'm a huge mess. No, just do what you can where you're at with what you know to the best of your ability. And the best of your ability today is different than tomorrow.
Yeah.
A baby cannot run. A baby cannot walk. It can crawl. It's doing the best it can with what it has, where it's at. You're the same way. Do what you can where you are, where you're at.
And the interesting thing is we don't shame a baby because they're crawling and not running. Right? We don't say, well, this baby, I don't know, I need to send it back because it's not running already.
Yeah. Or, you wouldn't
thing that a baby does, we celebrate it.
Or you wouldn't call somebody stupid because they don't know how to do brain surgery. Right. It's brain surgery. So the same thing applies with anything else. When you're first starting out, you're not going to be perfect at anything, at driving, at cooking, at walking, at even breathing. Babies don't come out the womb knowing immediately how to breathe. They choke for a little bit and then they figure it out. Mm-hmm. We don't even know how to breathe until we figure it out.
Yeah. Now, a lot of my guests have different strategies and methods that they use to kind of navigate this journey called life. And I know that you talk about therapy and meditation and journaling and, self-love practices. So I want to dive a little deeper into each of those. Can you kind of share how has each of these things helped you in your healing journey and, kind of played a huge role in your life? But how do you use each of them? Because I think there is a method to it, right? It's not just writing things down in a journal, right? That's the theory, but in practice, there's a specific way you need to kind of do things. So what's your way and how have these things helped you?
Okay, so I'll explain them in order. And at the end of that, I'm going to give a bonus one that I realized today while thinking about this episode.
Ooh,
so with therapy, it's often, especially, among men, it's often shamed. It's often talked about, oh, no, you're just acting soft. Oh, you're talking too much. Oh, this, oh, that. They don't need to know all my business. Your therapist is literally a trained professional in helping you to not lose your mind. When you're feeling stressed out, you might only need to go take a nap. But other people, like my younger self, when we felt stressed out, we needed a bit more than a nap. We needed to talk about it. We needed someone who was trained in how to help us help ourselves. When you feel like you can't help yourself, that's where your therapist comes in. That might be them talking to you. That might be them giving you strategies and methods and breath work. That's their job. Let them do their job. As far as journaling goes, that ties right into meditation as well. Because when you have all your problems up here in your head, it feels like a million things going on at once. Writing it physically gets it out. You can look down at it and you see the problem. Dear diary, I'm feeling stressed today. Then you write, why? Why am I feeling stressed? I'm feeling stressed because I got fired from my job. Okay, I'm feeling stressed because I got fired from my job. What can I do to feel less stressed? How about I put in a different job application? Are there any jobs hiring in my city? Are there business ideas I can start? Can I sell off old clothes? Can I find a way through this? Journaling helps you to stop having all your thoughts and ideas running around up here and get it out. It also has another benefit of planning. When you write things out, you see it, you can find ways to make it better, both in terms of feeling better about yourself, feeling less stressed, but also long-term planning. What is my 1 week goal? Write it out. What is my 1 month goal? Write it out. 1 year goal? Write it out. 10-year goal? Write it out. And every day you can see it. And next year, you can flip back to this same day and say, what happened on March 23rd, 2025? What was I thinking? How was I feeling? What was going through my mind on that day? You can see it. Meditation helps you to get calm. Sometimes when you're stressed out, a little is all you need. Maybe you need to go sit, and a lot of times we think of meditation as like the monks out in the mountains who are shaving their heads and they're sitting still for 8 hours a day. You don't need to do all of that. You just need to get present. Meditation is just about being present, focusing on right now, focus on your breath, focus on how you're feeling, focus on what's happening right now. Because if you keep focusing on the past, you'll be stuck there. If you keep focusing on the future, you're focusing on something that has not even happened yet. And the fourth tip is whatever someone believes, find that higher power. Because when you think I'm all I got, it's all up to me, that's scary. Because when you're running around and your life is chaotic and you think this is all my fault. I created this. I've been trying to find a way out, but I can't. If you have a higher power that you believe in, maybe you need to pray. Maybe you need to meditate. Maybe that means going and holding your crystals or holding some pearls or, doing spiritual practices. If you have that higher power, you can say, God, take the wheel. Allah, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever you believe, take the wheel. I've been trying. I've been doing the best I can, and it's not working. It's in your hands now. Give me the plan. Help me figure this out. Because if I'm all I got and I don't know what to do, the problem's not getting solved. Let me go consult the higher power.
That's it. Amen to that. Amen to that.
And in every in things like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, they tell you, find a higher power. Because if you've been trying to figure it out for 10 years and you haven't figured it out, you need to consult somebody else. You need to go consult the big man upstairs or the spirit inside of you or the universe or the crystals or whatever you believe in, because it's not about what you believe in. It's just about having something you believe in.
I know that so many of us think that we are supposed to go at this thing alone, right? We're supposed to figure out our problems alone. It's like, I came into this world by myself. I'm going to leave by myself. So all I have is me. But not recognizing that humans, we are social creatures, right? And so we grow and we thrive and we literally really survive when we are in social settings. Because if we are not in a social setting and we are alone for too long, we actually die from loneliness, right? And so it's really funny a lot of times when people are like, well, I'm just going to do it by myself. I don't need anybody, not even a higher power, right? Yeah. But not recognizing that, no, like you said, you need to find a higher power, find something to believe in, and then surround yourself with good people who have good intentions for you, right? And I know that you have said you named your 2 therapists that were instrumental in your healing journey, but also you talked about support systems and, in the just importance of having a support system. And so I feel like people need to understand, and it cannot be overstated, that a support system and having a support system is important. So can you talk about the people who stood by you, right? Because you brought up in the beginning of this conversation, you talked about the people who hurt you, more specifically your father. But you have had people who have stood by you, who have
Yes.
been there for you, who have assisted in your journey towards resilience. So talk about those people, give them their flowers.
Yes, I want to first off, give a big shout out to my mom. As cheesy as this sounds, don't nobody love you like how your mom gonna love you. I remember I used to be, I
Yes,
am a headache. I was such a headache for her to be around me. Like we would be going back and forth about me wanting to do things my way and not want to listen to her, which at the time I thought it would just, I gotta be this, manly man. I gotta, lead by example or whatnot because my dad wasn't an example. So now I'm just trying to figure out what it means to be a man. But at the time, I didn't realize that. I only know it in hindsight. And my desire to be so overly independent was actually rooted in a fear of abandonment because when you are depending on somebody else to make sure your needs are met and you have a history of people leaving you, kicking you out, abandoning you in front of churches who were supposed to help you meet those needs, now you're afraid to even let your mom take care of you. But I just want to shout her out, for not only the fact of obviously giving birth to me, but making sure that, I had a house to stay at and doing the best she could to tolerate me when I couldn't even tolerate myself. Another person I want to give a shout out to is my ex-girlfriend, Ariel. Okay, that girl had, at this time in my life, when I was 15 and 16, that's when me and her were together. We would just, I would have like, a good amount of self-belief. Like I was getting myself right, but I wasn't always there. And she said something to me that will stick with me forever. She said, Lawrence, if you saw yourself how I saw you, you'd think you were Superman. Because I'm really good at being there for other people. I was good at showing others I love them, supporting them, but I wasn't always good to myself. So she was saying, if you saw yourself how I saw you, you'd think you were Superman.
Wow.
And last up on that list, I'm going to have to give a shout out to my mom's boyfriend, who I used to be so shy, so nervous, so terrified to talk to people. But at the time, I wanted to be a photographer. So I got my camera, I got my lens, I got the whole shebang. However, if you're scared to talk to people, you can't get people to pay you to take that picture. So he took me down to the beach and we're out there. And he told me to go up and talk to random strangers and ask them if I could take that picture for some money. And it wasn't about the money. It was about the confidence to go up and talk to people and just say what you mean and just getting your point across. There's so many people on that list. My ex-boss, Andy, I used to work in door-to-door solar. So if you've ever had somebody knock on your door and try to sell you solar panels, that's what I was doing. So many people on that list have helped me, but those are just the ones that I'm going to name right now because we could go on and on about all of them.
And that's what we definitely want to be able to say, right? Is that we have more people on the positive sides of our life that have poured into us more than the number of people who have withdrawn from us, right?
Yes.
Now, one of the things that, there's a author, Simon Sinek, right, who has a book called Start With Why. And you've discussed building resilience through a refusal to quit and having a strong why. Okay. So can you explain how you have applied these principles and what is your why?
So the way I've applied the principle is just the refusal to quit. Picture this, right? You're the oldest sibling, and obviously your younger siblings look up to you. And there's this expectation to perform. You want to set a good example, not only because your father didn't set that good example, not only because you want to set a good example for yourself, but you want to do it for the generation under you. So younger siblings, younger brother, younger sister, nieces, nephews, cousins, that type of thing. And I knew I don't want my family, my siblings, the people around me to think I'm a quitter. I just did not want people to think Lawrence is a quitter, because I'm not. And every day I'll remind myself, you just got to keep pushing on. Sooner or later, something has to get better. When I was 15 years old, I'm standing inside of my bathroom looking in my mirror. And I didn't mention it earlier, but when I was 13, I was clinically diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which, you ever seen those movies where somebody pops a balloon and then the old guy jumps behind the couch because he thinks that he's getting shot by a helicopter? That's what PTSD is.
Wow.
So imagine every single time you have a trigger pop into your head, you have a full body, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, drawn back to that moment when you're 13 years old and you're shivering with fear and you're on the couch and your dad just blacked your eye and you're getting kicked out. You have a full body reaction to that. So I'm looking in my mirror and my eyes are all bloodshot because I can't sleep. I'm waking up every 2 hours. And I told myself, this cannot be it. This can't be it. I gotta find a way out of this. I have to figure something out. And if I quit, this is going to be the end. If I quit, this is it. I'm going to figure something out. And simply by a refusal to give up, by the audacity to not lay down and just take it, by the gall to pick yourself up when you feel down, to listen to the people who are encouraging you, even if you don't believe it. Because at this time in my life, I had encouraging people. I had people who loved me. I had people who supported me. But I did not believe it. I was thinking to myself, oh, they're just saying that. Oh, they just lying. Oh, they talking about me behind my back. Your mind can make up the most crazy things to justify whatever you believe.
Yep.
If you believe that you're the best thing walking, your mind will convince you of it. If you think that you just this worthless, just piece of dirt, your mind will convince you of it. So through the resilience to just not give up, you can find a way out. And over time, when I found my way out, and I'm just like, I was drowning for so long, and I finally got that breath of fresh air, I realized there's so many people who go through this. Let me help them. So that's when I started making the YouTube videos. I started making the TikToks. I started speaking at churches and places for free. I was speaking for free for years just because I wanted to help people. That's when I started to write the books and I started to go on podcasts and I made the website and I was doing all this stuff because my why is the betterment of humanity. My why is making sure that no other teenager or young adult feels how I felt, because I've lost multiple people to suicide. And when that happens, you realize that it's real. We hear about it, we see it online, we know it happens, but when you know the person it happened to, it hits different. And that lights a fire in you. So my why is making sure that nobody feels how I felt or feel how, unfortunate other people have felt. Yeah. That's the why.
Now, one of the things that I do on Wednesday nights with my boys, I have 3 sons, and we connect on Wednesday nights. That is a must. I do not skip out on that. They don't skip out on that. That is something I'm committed to. And we connect and we do talk about highs and lows of our week. And we just kind of have conversations, phones are put away. There's no distractions, right? And so one of the things that I recognized is that as I'm doing this Wednesday night ritual, that I'm really pouring into them and kind of shaping them for adulthood, right? They're a captive audience at that time.
Yeah.
Just like you have your captive audience when you have the students and the young people that you are speaking to, you have that moment right there to grab them, right? To grab their attention and to pour into them. So when you were talking about your why, what are some ways that if anybody out there, if you are a person who pours into young people, we need them to know what their why is, because it does seem like a lot of them are lost at times, right? So, Lawrence, what do you do to help young people find out what their why is? And if you are a young person, you might want to listen into this so that you can figure out, because if you're feeling a little lost, and even if you're not a young person, right? If you're a little seasoned person like us, but how do you help someone to find their why? Because sometimes people don't know what their why is. So, what is that process? How do you begin that? How do you start that?
Well, the way you start that process is it's firstly recognizing the fact that a lot of times we're asked things like, what do you want to be? What do you want to have? What kind of money do you want to have? We don't ask them, what kind of impact do you want to have on the world? So simply start with the question of, what do you like to do? What do you enjoy? Oh, I like to paint. I like to write. I like to design houses on Minecraft. Whatever you like to do. It could be just playing video games. Okay, now how can this benefit somebody else? How can you take the thing you like and make it benefit other people? Oh, I like to make art. People like having nice houses. I can paint houses. Now, how can you monetize the thing that you like that benefits other people and you make money from it? I like to make art. People like art. I can sell art. That's a simple way of putting it. Or I like to help people. People need help. Okay, what kind of help do you want to give people? So digging a little deeper into the specifics. Oh, I want them to feel appreciated. I want them to feel loved. How about a motivational speaker? How about a therapist? How about a counselor? How about you work at a daycare? How about a teacher? We have all these methods within that. What you like to do, how it benefits other people, and how you make money from it. Then over time, you dig deeper and deeper into yourself. Like, okay, well, I've tried this. I didn't really like it. There's nothing wrong with that. Your first idea does not have to be the permanent thing. Your first why doesn't have to be permanent. You figure it out more with time. You add on to it. You try things. You explore. You experiment. Because very few people get it right the first time. I wanted to be a jeweler. I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a paleontologist. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be so many things throughout my life. And then I figured out, okay, what do these all have in common? You're creating something. You're designing something. You're building a community. You're creating content for people. Okay, so this does something for other people. It benefits me and it benefits them. I want to do something that benefits those around me. And over time, that led to motivational speaking.
Wow. Wow. Now, I want to put this up on the screen so that everyone out there can see that, within this, becoming a youth empowerment speaker. So when you're working with young people and you're pouring into them, right, aside from trying to help them figure out their why, so what are some common limiting beliefs that you see in young people? And how do you help them overcome these particular challenges?
So the major three limiting beliefs I see in young people today are, I can't because my family couldn't do it. I can't because of my race. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. These are the 6 most common, because when we don't have good examples and we haven't had experience, we start to shrink ourselves down. We start to think, oh, well, my family couldn't do it. My mom couldn't do it. My grandma couldn't do it. My uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, brothers, cousins, they couldn't do it. So how can I do it? Or we start to think about things such as, growing up, especially with movies. Unfortunately, most movies that depict Black men, it's something violent. It's a gang member, it's a drug dealer, it's somebody in the streets, it's a basketball player. Maybe you'll see something positive like a movie about Obama. But that's the outliers. The majority that is getting pushed, because there's good, male role models in blacks. There's good Black male role models in movies. They're out there. But that's not what's getting pushed and promoted. So because of that, as a child, you see this, you're thinking, all of us are drug dealers? All of us are gang members? It starts to create this belief inside of yourself that you can't because of how you look. That then ties into things like female beauty standards where, I can't because I'm not pretty enough. Or Kim Kardashian she looks so much different than me and everybody wants to be like her. Or Ariana Grande, everybody wants to be like her. And this is nothing against these individuals. It's simply to say that when growing up, we overly compare ourselves and we box ourselves down because we don't look a certain way, or we didn't come from a certain place, or we didn't have certain things growing up. We start to think that, I can't, I'm going to disqualify myself from even trying. And the way that I get this past people, the way I help young people to break this, it's gradual. I simply ask them, well, why do you think that you can't? I can't because I didn't come from this neighborhood. I didn't grow up with the nice, shiny stuff. Did Jay-Z? Did J. Cole? Did Kanye West? Did Beyonce? Did Rihanna? Did Oprah? Did Obama? Did Martin Luther King? We can even go farther back. Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman. All of them grew up in way worse circumstances than you did. I can't because, I'm just ugly, or I don't look a certain way, or I don't this, I don't that. Ugly to whose standard? To whose standard? Because if you go to a different country, the beauty standard is way different. There are parts in Africa where the female beauty standard is being very overweight, because if you're overweight, it means you're well fed. They find that attractive there. Maybe in America, people don't, or it's a minority of people. So regardless, when we have the beliefs about ourselves, it's about just reframing it.
Yeah.
It's about reframing it. Okay, I didn't grow up with a 2-parent household. You grow up with one, though. I didn't grow up, in a big house. It was me and 3 generations inside a 1-bedroom apartment. You had a roof, though. I didn't grow up with, my skin. I'm too dark, or I'm too light, or I'm too this, I'm too that.
Yeah.
You're breathing, though. You got 2 eyes. You got a nose. You got a mouth. You got 10 fingers. But one of my legs is amputated. You got a wheelchair. It's about reframing the belief and realizing, okay, you don't have what you don't have. Yeah, you grew up and your dad or your mom wasn't there. Yeah, you grew up and they might have been addicted to something. Yeah, you might have grew up getting beat on. But that does not have to define you. What you believe about yourself is what you're going to run on. So when we change what we believe, we change our outcomes and our perspective on life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, wow, man. Now, how do you help young people, or just people, period, have the courage, or develop the courage rather, to seek out help? Because I know it's very difficult to reveal things about yourself, right? So the fact that you are able to stand in front of people and share your truth, right? And share your pain and the things that you went through. So what do you say to someone, who is hesitant to reach out for support or to begin therapy so that they can start their healing process? Because it could be pretty embarrassing.
It is. It's definitely tough. And I understand it because, growing up, you're told you don't want to tell everybody your problems, or that stays in the family, or that's personal business. But I don't even say that everybody necessarily needs to go down the therapy route. It's just about finding a way to get it out and finding a way to get the help that you might need. You could get that help from a family member or a friend or a counselor or a teacher. But the first way to start getting that help is to start simple. I feel sad. Start there. You don't have to go full in depth and pour your heart out to a stranger. However, you simply need to tell somebody around you, I feel sad. I feel upset. I feel stressed. Start there. And if you feel like they're not judging you, you give them a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. You don't have to jump into the deep end about your problems right off the bat. You just step in the water. They're not judging me. Okay, let me step a little further. They're not judging me. Let me step a little further. They're not judging me. And over time, you build the trust, connection, and love that is needed to ask for help, to say, I'm going through a really tough time. My dad beating on me. I had this bad relationship. I was getting kicked in and out the house. That's once you have that trust built up, that's when you're able to fully reach your hand out. Because now you've inched your way out there. So my advice, if you're a young person or just a person in general who's afraid to ask for help or to talk to somebody about how you feel, not necessarily a therapist, but just talking to somebody, friend, family member, teacher, counselor, whoever, is just little by little. I'm having a hard time. Oh, why are you having a hard time? I'm having a hard time because I'm going through some of my family. Do you want to talk about it? You decide, do you want to talk about it? Because once you make the decision to talk about it, you're reclaiming your power in a sense. You're deciding, I want to let this out. I want to free myself from this. I want to be able to move past it. But it all starts with that first decision to open the door.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I can't even believe that this conversation is almost over because it has been fantastic. So I have to ask you, as I ask everyone, so in your opinion, what are the best ways to build resilience?
I would really have to say the best way to build resilience is to overcome something. It's like a sword. Everybody wants to be the shiny, sharp, strong sword. But in order to get there, you have to take iron from out the ground so it gets dug up. All that pain, all that trauma, all that suffering, it gets dug up. And then it gets put in the fire. It gets melted down. They hammer it, they hammer it, they hammer it. They cool it down. They hammer it, hammer it some more. And then they grind it and they sharpen it and they grind it down some more. And then they polish it. And then you get the strong, shiny sword. So the way to build resilience is to go through the process. You're going to have to go through that fire. And everyone's fire is different. Just because you didn't overcome cancer or you didn't overcome childhood abuse, that does not invalidate what you went through. Your fire might have been a divorce. Your fire might have been a miscarriage, or it might have been a bad breakup, or it might have been somebody bullying you. Your fire is your fire. Don't compare it to somebody else's. And then when you're in that pain and you're like, man, this is just too hard. I should give up. My girlfriend broke up with me and I got kicked out the house and I'm arguing with my parents and, everything just falling apart. That's your fire right there. You got to push through that. And once you push through it, on the other side is that freedom. On the other side is that strength. On the other side of the fire is how you go from iron to steel. How you go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Go from an egg to a tadpole to a frog. To go from just, man, I don't think I could do it, to I know I can do it. To go from, but it's too hard, to I'm strong enough to bear the burden. That is how you develop that resilience.
I love it. Love it. Well, Lawrence, your story is a testament to the incredible power of resilience and the human spirit's capacity to heal and thrive. Thank you for sharing your experiences and insights on Lifejacked, the Resilience podcast. Your dedication to transforming the lives of young people is truly inspiring. And I have no doubt that your message will resonate deeply with our viewers and listeners. Remember, whether you're a young person struggling with self-doubt or someone looking to build a life of purpose, the journey to empowerment begins within. So, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about your organization?
Yes. So the way to get in touch with me, my Instagram, Mr.Notorious, N-O-T Oreo US. It's a wordplay of how the word notorious, spelled the normal way, means to be known for something typically bad. But my favorite snack is Oreos, which is where the O Oreo comes in. The US is I'm from America, us obviously, and then the fact that people need to be more united. So it's a whole thing. My TikTok, Notorious, spelled the exact same way, _university. That's the same thing on YouTube, Notorious _university. My website, lawrenceharris.com. And on there, you can find my books. I'm also recording audiobooks. I'm really easy to find. You could even just Google my name. You could Google Lawrence C. Harris, and it all pops up. My LinkedIn, my website, everything. I make myself easy to find.
Love it. Any last words of encouragement for the listeners?
The last word of encouragement I would give is we hear this so often that it kind of becomes cliche, but it's really the truth. You're not alone unless you think you are. And when your mind starts playing tricks on you, I remember earlier you mentioned that we think we need to do it all alone, and I'm just born alone, I'm going to die alone. That's what, we hear it characterized as the devil on your shoulder. That's what that wants you to think. Because when you think you're alone, you're easy to take down. You can destroy an individual. You cannot destroy a team. When you have a team of people, support system, maybe that's your friends, your family, your loved ones. When you got a team, you can't break that down. So remember, you're not alone unless you think you are. And when you think you're alone, you're easy to take down. So reaching out and getting some help, reaching out and making some friends, getting, just people who support you and people you support too, because it goes both ways. You can't keep taking if you're not giving. You're not alone unless you think you are. And remember, always love yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you don't love you, it don't matter how many other people love you. You got to love you before you try to get other people to love you. So I'll leave it on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lawrence, it has been a privilege and honor to have you on the show. I want to wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please take care. Lawrence Chrystopher Harris, everyone. Be sure to join me next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback leads to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.
Oh, that was amazing.
All righty. Let me see. I'm ending. Okay, stay on.